And just one more additive on that. In my seat, obviously, I've gotten to help guide some careers, but also see a lot of what goes on in the businesses. And more often than not, it is the people with that positive can-do attitude that are the ones that get tapped for, you know, that next new project, or that next new assignment, or there's that cool new initiative that comes up. And generally speaking, again, you've got some anomalies, but generally speaking, you know, those that you know, are interested in trying new things and are generally positive, typically are the ones that will get tapped. Not always, but
that's where your stress comes from. When you're one of those people, because you're the one that gets to do everything. Because you're the one that people want to work with because you're so positive all the time. Then they're always pushing the work, and then all of a sudden your stress level goes up. And that positive thing starts to get out of hand.
And I think, you know, then that becomes an exercise in priority and
setting boundaries.
And that can be difficult for women, not to, you know, exclude our wonderful, you know, males in the room. But I think traditionally we, you know, are a little bit more of the caretaker, more of the nurturer. Oh, yes, bring it on. I will care and feed for it. And oftentimes we do that in the workplace too. And, you know, again, I think that's where, you know, even with what I just said, then it becomes boundaries, then it becomes priorities. Great, I love this opportunity. I've got these 3 things going on right now that are also priorities, so I will stage this one in at this point in time. So getting very sort of specific about, almost project managery about it.
Yeah.
So my best friend actually happens to be exactly what you just described. She is the polar opposite of me in every way. But she's also vice president and a general manager of a hot little startup that is just going gangbusters. She's constantly being asked to do consulting work. Really, really, really successful woman. And she doesn't like to sweat. She just doesn't like to sweat. And so what it took for her, because she was doing a lot of work in mindset and attitude changing. She was going through a major life transition, unfortunately in the midst of a divorce from her husband of 20 years, all that goes with that, also with 2 children. I mean, it just was a big thing. But she was making the connection between her cognitive abilities, her emotional stamina that was really waning during this challenging time, having to be really, really the leader of an organization that required tons and tons of her physical presence and emotional presence to lead this company. And, but she knew she needed to do something. So what she found was a combination of Tai Chi, of yoga, lots of different kinds of yoga that she tried until she found the right one. And she likes to take long walks because now that centers her.
And that's enough.
So for her, it's not about, you know, I get the rush of running and sprinting and, you know, challenging and the physicality, but that's not for everyone, and that's okay. You know, sometimes it's the solitude, sometimes it's that sort of inner, you know, connectedness you can just get with yourself by taking a solo long walk. You can make it a potential career connection by walking with someone who maybe happens to be someone that's in a job you want. Find that person. You know, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can kind of thread those things together that don't have to be, you know, marathon related. So that would be my thing. It's kind of like find what's right for you.
Right. Shelli?
Yeah, that's great. I have a lot of thoughts in response to your question. But I would agree. I mean, there's benefit from team sports, and we can talk about that in a minute. But really, there's benefit also from the individual sports too. And I use sport broadly. Whether it's going for a walk and having that time just to think and just to reflect. There's a lot of neuroscience in leadership development around having time to reflect. And Bobbie asked about journaling earlier. To me, a long walk or a long ride by myself is that reflective time to process what has happened that day, what's working, what's not. That's my mini debrief. It's as much about the thinking time and the reflection time. I'm an introvert also, so I like that time alone inside my head. the sport provides me as well. Bless you.
I think that's absolutely great advice. I mean, you have to find something that works for you. You know, you don't have to be, an ultra competitive soccer player or a marathoner or like some, somebody who considers themselves, an athlete in the gym 6-7 days a week. It's just whatever works for you, and it can really be just as simple as going for a long walk or yoga or something. But I think the point we're trying to make is that some of the benefits that you see here will definitely accrue to you if you make it a regular, consistent activity. And I think given everything that's on your plate and the environment that you work in here in Silicon Valley, you need every edge you can get, right? And so I think that's one of the things, the themes that we're trying to share with you today is that in order for you to continue to be successful and to be able to thrive and not just survive, this is really an important element of your toolkit. It's one way or another, you have to figure out a way to connect it. So, I mean, these are just some of the attributes and benefits that we talked about. I'm going to ask Barbara and Shelli maybe share a story about how you've seen a specific connection and benefit between what you're doing with athletics to a challenge that you had in the workplace.
Sure. It's an easy correlation to make, given that I'm in a leadership role and I also happen to play a team sport. So again, for me, as I found kind of navigating my career, it's lent itself very well. I lead a global team of about 60 to 70 people at any given point in time. My team size prior to joining McAfee was double or triple that at any given point in time. And you have to be sort of the face, the leader, the guider, the spiritual cheerleader, and you play a lot of different roles at different times. And for me, with a team sport, it's a chess game, right? I mean, we all know the game of soccer. You try and move that little round ball up and kick it in the net and someone scores. But if I don't play my part in that, if I don't hustle to the ball and try and get there first, and make a good pass to my teammate, then I've put my team in jeopardy. It's pretty simple. Same thing in the workplace. If you are working on a collaborative project on a global scale, if I don't hustle and do my part or, cheerlead my team to do a particular part, they will then let their global team down. And in our discipline of recruitment and talent acquisition and, internal mobility, that's a team sport. It's a human contact sport, this business that we're in. And so I've always been able to draw a very direct correlation between supporting your teammate on the field and supporting my teammate in the work environment. Whether I happen to wear the leader cap that day or not, it's still just as important. So that's always been an easy connection for me to make.
What about the story about when you broke your leg? I love that story.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not a great story.
I love that story. Tell that to now thankfully 8 years or so ago, those of you that may know Joe Theismann, who famously had his leg absolutely crushed on the football field. That was me. So unfortunate collision with a guy double my size, and my left leg just snapped in two. Yeah, full break, both bones. So I'm now the proud owner of a titanium rod that goes down through my leg. And, I definitely had some major lessons learned in that. Not only was the sport that I derive a lot of my identity from, now no longer a part of my day in and day out. There was the physicality. I had 3 surgeries over a 2-year period. I couldn't, walk for 3 months and couldn't run for 8 months. And what I also lost was my social connection, or could have lost my social connection, because a lot of the people that I play with are also some of my best friends. We all had children in, the same 1 to 3 year window of time. So I got both a social element to playing and I got a physical element to playing, both that fed me, and now both of those things were gone. And so looking back on it, I absolutely went into a slight period of depression. And when, started going the woe is me, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, hop around the house, how do I wash my hair, simple stuff like that. And, chose to still go to, still chose to go to soccer practice when they practiced, and I chose to crush the track field. And then I chose to walk the track field. So I still got to see my friends. They got to give me positive accolades. Way to go, Barb, great to see you. You know, I got a little bit of exercise, but it did wonders for my mental capacity. I mean, I just was really floundering, and that could have been a go way south. So it kept me focused at work. You know, work doesn't stop, you know, just because you broke your leg. I happened to work with a great company that totally picked up the pieces with me. But that didn't stop, so somehow still had to have the stamina, the cognitive ability, you know, all that stuff to do my day job. So that, you know, it's an interesting one. I look back on a lot and draw strength and go, yeah, it was way worse back then.
So did that help you manage the pain too?
Absolutely, absolutely. That was, I've had 2 kids, not to go into any details, but that's a hardcore experience, and the leg was worse. So, yeah.
I can totally resonate with that because 10 years back I had a very bad knee fracture, and I have a hold of bones, the screws and the
Pins,
steels
right,
and pins and a lot of stuff, so I can totally resonate.
Yeah.
But I was reminded of that. I've never been an athlete. I never am. I've not been a hiker before that. And I went through a small period of depression where I couldn't walk for 6 months. And then my husband, he's the one who motivated me to kind of walk again. And with him, I used to hike, and my best hike was Half Dome. So I could do, there was one point when I could not even bend my leg or anything, and you know, it was just endurance and a lot of support and, you know, just the steel. But sometimes, you know, coming back, though I've endured that pain and having been able to do hiking up to Half Dome, currently, you know, I forget that. Sometimes, you know, when you go through tough situations, it's like, sometimes it looks like I'm just starting from the scratch. I don't even get reminded of this. So that's something that I think we need to work on.
Yeah. Bit of reflection. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about you, Shelli? I'm sure you must have a story.
I do. For me, it's a couple of things, right? It's all of the things Bob was saying about the team and the connections between you. I believe people who play team sports really get how teams in a workplace operate. And it's almost intuitive to make that connection. For me, it was also, I have a sister who played softball with me from the time we were 6 and 7 years old, and I played through college. And she was a pitcher. And you know, everybody knows that the pitcher is the star of the softball field. Well, I was not a natural pitcher, and in fact, I didn't even like pitching, but you know, Dad wanted us to pitch, so I pitched. But it wasn't until I discovered that I actually preferred catching that I found myself, my identity, and was able to play and be who I was in, and operate from a place of authenticity. So I would ask, you know, we talked a little bit about strengths and finding those things earlier, but for me it was about identity and authenticity. I actually really enjoyed the game, and I get that my whole paradigm about life is kind of the view behind the plate. So I make those connections now.
Right.
You know, I don't need to be the star in the middle of the field, and I don't even like to be the star in the middle of the field. But I do much better when I can be behind the scenes and telling my left fielder to go this direction, and you know, you need to come in a little bit more, and just kind of that director behind the scenes. For me, that was a really important lesson to learn early on. There was one other thing, but then I forgot. It'll come back in a minute.
It's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think about it? Let us know. And I think one story for me, I think the lesson sort of that I learned and the application that I make now, since I came to sports a little bit later in life than Barbara and Shelli did, but whenever, because the Ironman event is, they call it an endurance event for a reason, because you know, it really is. And for me, when I now encounter a difficult situation or something that is challenging, I can always stop now and think back and say, wait a minute, I'm an Ironman. I mean, I've done this crazy thing now multiple times. That's a whole other story. And so I think back about how do I manage myself through a difficult situation? How do I really dig deep? I mean, where do I find that sort of self-confidence and the ability to keep going and believe in myself and know that I can do more than I thought I could do? Because those were a lot of the lessons that I learned.